Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in Jew. I very welcome my friends and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Oh, come here, you. So, welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. And today I'm looking at this brilliant site, DC World, which is actually run by this British guy, a really nice guy, really friendly, really positive. And he's decided to kind of embrace the release the Snyder Cut movement. And he's written an article about it. So should we give it a look? Because I think it's very interesting and very important that people who run DC sites are supporting this because it does exist. It is a positive for fans to fight for this and to see this movie because this is the real vision of Justice League. You know, the other Justice League has directed by Zack Snyder when it's barely directed by Zack Snyder, and it's certainly not his vision. So for his name to even be on there is an absolute disgrace. So let's give this a read. The release the Snyder Cut movement. The following article is in support of British actor Will Rowlands and a few other passionate fans DC World have been in contact with and supporting recently. And after talking to Will on social media, DC World wanted to support this super amazing movement. They have started and it's gaining massive momentum to release the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League movie. We now all know it exists and need Warner Brothers to step up and release to us, the many fans around the world, and realise they also make even more money in this venture. San Diego Comic-Con 2019 in July is where this movement will continue to advertise and promote the release the Snyder Cut movement, with airplane flyovers, with banners, posters on bus stops, t-shirts and merchandise sales. Links below to purchase and donate, and also supporting a suicide awareness charity, plus giant billboards and more. DC World wanted to post this article online as it is a little known fact that the Justice League movie release in the theatres only had approximately 30 minutes of scenes shot by the credited director Zack Snyder. The theatrical cut was just under 2 hours. The original version, all shot by Zack Snyder, was just over 3.5 hours, meaning that we have not seen 2.5 hours of the movie that was advertised. Zack was also created in the theatrical release as story by Zack Snyder. The reality is, due to the extreme changes made, the story was completely different. Yeah, so it says story by Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio, but it basically really isn't their story. It's Joss Whedon's cut the story up, isn't it? But he's down as a writer as well. So let's have a look. Rewind to 2011. WB asked Christopher Nolan, following the huge success of his Dark and gritty Batman Dark Knight trilogy, to look at developing a trilogy or at least rebooting the Superman for film. He wasn't 100% into it due to other projects he was working on, so he contacted Zack Snyder and asked if he wanted to develop. Zack agreed, as did WB, and work began. Because, of course, WB have got a great history with Zack Snyder. We shouldn't forget that. Zack created Man of Steel with world building in mind, however, ensured it was or could be its own standalone movie. After the success, WB asked Zack to work on a cinematic universe, following on from Man of Steel. Zack then devised and created his 5-arc plan. He presented this to WB, who greenlit the project. There was to be Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League Part 1, Justice League Part 2, and Man of Steel 2. That is the 5-arc movie plan. What we didn't know at the time is that during post-production of BVS, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the studio interfered and cut half an hour out. We remember that, and that's why we got the Ultimate Edition. Leading to this, despite BVS making just short of $900 million at the box office, it received a lot of negative critic reviews, complaining of various issues. Mainly it was too dark, poor story, etc., etc. Realising that they should have listened to Zack when they released the DVD, they included the Ultimate Edition. The DVD sales took another 80 million. Those who had previously gave negative reviews were now changing their minds. A lot have been on record to say it's now a great film. Why didn't they show that in the cinema? So again, Kevin Sujihara's interference was problematic. Not just his interference in cutting the movie, but his interference of not marketing the film and telling us what the film actually was. Right. You would hope they learned from this. Wrong. They then interfered with Suicide Squad. Look at the reception that received. After the awful reviews and constant negativity from anti-DC bloggers and MCU fanboys, WB suddenly wanted to revise their original green light for Zack's 5-art plan. They publicly changed the planned slate of releases and told Zack to reduce his story down to just 3 movies. Pathetic. This meant for the time being there would be no Man of Steel 2. Justice League would now need to be in one movie. So Zack revised his storyboards and condensed it into one movie, but warned the studio that it would mean the one movie would have to be in the region of 3.5 hours to enable him to fully tell the story. The studio agreed. The nightmare sequences in BVS would pay off in Justice League, which ultimately would have pleased those who still hated on BVS. It would show there was a plan after all. As a filmmaker, Zack has his own process. Unlike most, he doesn't work off a script. He draws the film himself. He creates a book of storyboards, then asks for a script to include within his vision. He has a rule. If I draw it, I shoot it. So that's a really different way of working. For us, his fans, it works. Let me tell you how I work. I actually don't write anything. I've got an old audio cassette recorder, and I literally act out the whole story, right? The whole story, and that's how I work. That's how I tell stories. That's a freakish way how to do it, and then it gets penned down onto a script. But so everyone has different ways of working, and we're not clones, you know. We shouldn't all be the same. Different things work for different people, don't they? So another process Zack follows is he always shoots heavy CG scenes first. In principal production, when he is happy that the scene he shoots, he immediately send it off to be worked on. This allows a longer post-production process. Effectively, this means it will be perfected easy in advance. Whenever a shot that requires only CG work and no actors, he will shoot these in pre-production, freeing up even more time in post-production, freeing up time and freeing up the budget as well, by the way. It's surprising that not all filmmakers do this. It seems like a common sense, right? It does. So if principal production is completed, the cast all move on during post-production. Studio execs, particularly Jeff Johns, Toby Emmerich and Kevin Sujihara, were pressuring Zack to marvelise the film as they started to fear the same negativity that BVS received, right? I don't believe, from what I've been told, that Jeff Johns was pressuring Zack. I said it in yesterday's dceu Daily, and you can check that video out, that Jeff just wanted them to allow him to finish this one Justice League movie, then move him on, then start the phase 2 and what they were going to do. But Kevin Sujihara is the guilty party here, and thank God he's gone, and he's gone for that very reason. No question. Any other bullshit you've heard is that bullshit. Approximately 6 months into post-production, Zack's daughter Autumn took her own life. Zack then stepped down to be with his family. That was the line they told us anyway. This created the opportunity for WB to take advantage of the situation and change the movie. Imagine it, right? You're a respected creative in your field, right? Your daughter has killed herself. You take that step away to be with your family, understandably. And they tell you, don't worry, Zack, Josh is just going to finish off your film, confer with him what you want, and it'll be fine. But then they stab you in the back and they change the whole fucking movie. Think about that. Your daughter has killed herself. This is what the entertainment industry is, full of backstabbers. Forget the smiles when they're doing the press junkets. This is the truth. This is the truth of what these horrible people are. I know the entertainment industry. I'm in it in a lesser level. And let's just be honest, there's very few of us that are actually genuine friends. Right. Publicly claiming that the film would remain as Zack's vision, and Joss Whedon was brought in to make sure the film is completed as per Zack's vision. This has since proven to have been a lie, obviously. All you have to do is watch the movie to know that. It has now been revealed that when Zack left, the execs of WB told Joss to reduce the film down to no more than 2 hours, of reasoning to enable more viewings per day to increase their box office numbers. Joss recommended that this would require extensive reshoots in order to make the story legible, including cutting out major plot points. He apparently requested more time, but Sugihara mandated the runtime and insisted the release date was not delayed. It has since transpired that the release date remained because Sugihara and crew wanted to ensure its release in time to hit the end of the year bonus payouts. Again, they're using the tragedy for personal gain. Right. I have heard it, and I've got it under good authority, that Joss Whedon had already been given the Batgirl gig. He had little choice in being involved with this. Unfortunately, he was dragged into this kicking and screaming. But what Joss suggested, and what I suggested after the fallout, was that, okay, you don't like what Zack's done, bin his movie, and let me do my own Justice League, right? Let me do my own Justice League movie from the very beginning, right? Let's use the same actors, but let's do it from my point of view and how I would do it. And they wouldn't allow it because of the very reason this article states, to hit, so they could get all the bonuses, right? And it's outrageous. If you're not happy with a director and his vision, fair enough, but allow the new direction to implement his own vision. So the whole thing was messy. Sugihara is really an example of all studio execs right now, and all studios. None of them have a clue how to market films, how to make films. You just compare the films we're seeing now to the films we saw 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And, I think my statement is proved. Right. Meanwhile, WB was actively promoting the movie, releasing multiple trailers still showing the Snyder cut scenes and dialogue that would never be in the actual movie. Joss even reshot already completed scenes, almost shot for shot, solely to add smiles, jokes, and change the dialogue to fit the new storyline. When the film was released, it was essentially a box office flop. The movie was titled, directed by Zack Snyder, story by Zack Snyder, Chris Terrio, and Joss Whedon. The reality is the story was not Zack's, and 90% of footage was not filmed or directed by Zack. They kept his name to cover their deception. Well, actually, it's actually the rules of the film bodies. They had to keep his name in it. And plus, they wanted to, there was a deception part of it, of course. Hoping that because it is the first live-action Justice League movie, the audience would flock to it and find it light, funny, and it would make Avengers money. Snyder fans knew it was way of many DC fans liked it, but felt extremely disappointed, and the anti-DCEU bloggers, fanboys, hated it. How could they release it with the awful Henry Moustache CG face? Exactly. Crazy. The immoral actions did not pay off. They didn't. Between the time of the film's release and the DVD release, heads began to roll at WB. Jeff Johns was fired and moved sideways. We'll talk about Jeff Johns. Moved sideways. Other senior members were quietly moved on publicly, though WB spun these moves as a positive. However, the real reason was major shareholders were furious at the treatment Zack received and the poor management of this movie. The truth of the matter is, if they were that offended by how Zack was treated, why not reinstate him and let him finish his cut? So it's to cover up the mistakes, of course. They don't like to admit it. I think with Jeff Johns, he was fired from being the head of the DCEU. There's no question about that. But Jeff admitted it. I'm not a leader. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. So Jeff Johns never held back, even when he was in the job, saying this is really not my strength. I've been, this is a great privilege to be doing this job, but I'm a storyteller. So Jeff never hid that really being a boss wasn't really for him. Then the DVD release date came. The trailers for the DVD release still included the same Snyder Cut scenes as before, yet now customers knew that was being advertised was not going to be in the movie itself. WB did try and give some hope by announcing the DVD contained previously unseen scenes. Reality was 2 short clips, both lasting around 2 minutes. These scenes were in Zack's tone and style and completely finished and would absolutely have improved the theatrical version. This was just less than 5 minutes of footage that could have been put into the film at least. The truth was now leaking. People were no longer being fooled. Cast members and crew began to publicly condemn the movie and call for the director's cut. This is actually, well done, mate. This is a freaking amazing article. I think this is the best one I've ever read to you. Within months of the film release and the first whispers of the truth, fans began small protests outside the WB Burbank, CA, and thus the release the Snyder Cut movement was born. See attached. A website soon followed for snydercut.com. This has a detailed timeline of events. In the aftermath of all these revelations, the movement has grown and grown, fighting for not only the Snyder Cut, but campaigning for artistic integrity and suicide awareness. 180,000 people signed survey asking for the Snyder Cut, a coordinated letter campaign to the now new chief of DC Films division of WB, Walter Hamada, asking for the Snyder Cut. Worldwide trending. The first campaign to support the ASVP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, in honor of autumn, into the People T-shirt campaigns, again to raise money in honor of autumn, for the AFSP banner flown over WB Studios, released the Snyder Cut. In response, the T-shirt campaign, Zack released his own T-shirt campaigning printing his 5-arc design on the shirt. Coordinated telephone campaign to WB Studios asking for info on releasing the Snyder Cut. The movement then donated to buy gifts for the phone operator at WB. Do you remember that? For being so polite and putting up with the contact influx of calls. In my video, Zack then arranged SnyderCon, a 3-day weekend event showing one of the film's director's cuts a day, including a panel Q&A with Zack, the cast and crew, and signings. Now, this was a smart move by Snyder. He knew exactly what he was doing, where he would pretty much really throw Warner Brothers under the bus over the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. Dawn of the Dead, Friday Watchmen, Saturday BVS Ultimate Edition, Sunday. Since the movement began, Zack has been dropping clues on his Vero account, posting previously unseen screenshots from Justice League, fueling the intensity for the movement to not stop fighting. At the BVS UE screening, Zack explained the 5-arc original plan. The nightmare sequences were shots from the future in the Justice League movie. The burned down metropolis, the Omega symbol, scorched into the earth. Evil Superman kills Batman. She was my world, and you took her from me. Flash appearing to Bruce in the cave. I'm too early. Bruce, listen to me. You were right about him. You were always right about him. Save Lois. Lois is the key. Lois is the key. We now know that warning was about Darkseid and not Superman. But of course, Batman in BVS is totally focused in killing Superman. So it's very cleverly done. Zack explained that the League would fail to defend Earth, and most of the League would die, leaving Barry, Cyborg, and Bruce. Steppenwolf was almost defeated, but retreated, causing Darkseid to come. Darkseid, unable to use the anti-life equation against Clark, learns that the only way into his mind is to remove Lois. Darkseid boom tubes into the Batcave, where Lois is with Bruce. Bruce in hiding. Darkseid murders Lois. Superman, distraught, heartbroken, blames Bruce for not protecting her, blames him for her death, i.e., she was my world, you took her from me. Superman then succumbs to the anti-life and become evil Superman, as seen in the vision. Cyborg learns that the Mother Box technology can assist Barry in time travel if he can run fast enough, but explains that there's only 2 windows in space-time. If he misses either, he would appear in space, as the Earth would have rotated from that point in time, and Barry would die in outer space. Do you see how they're using actual accurate science here as well? Brilliant. As Barry is about to go through, Bruce remembers the visit he got from Flash in the cave and finally releases what it meant. He asks Cyborg which window Barry should take. Cyborg answers, and Bruce says to Barry, use the other one. You already tried this one. Barry then goes back to the correct moment in time, just before Lois is murdered, and enabling Bruce to save her. Superman then never falls under the influence and is able to defeat Darkseid. Yay! He then said WB were worried it would be too scary, too dark. Here we go. Then changing it completely when he left. Now made sense. They wanted light and fun, marvelous for profit. A complete and immoral act, taking advantage of the suicide for their own gain. In the build-up to the 3-day event, which we call SnyderCon, people were getting excited that he may announce the release of the Snyder Cut. All the clues he's been pointing, the info being leaked, was all pointing towards its existence. Despite many negative bloggers, etc., still insisting and rudely implying fans were crazy, all claiming that there was no such thing as the Snyder Cut. However, during the Q&A, not one person had the courage to ask him about it. Does it exist? Is it being released? What are all your clues, etc.? During the SnyderCon, I got to speak with Zach after the Q&A. I asked him if, when not, as it was obvious he has a cut and it was ready to go before he stepped away. He replied, I can't tell you when. All I can say, it's done. It's ready. All but a few CG tweaks, but it's done. I just can't legally release it. Only they, WB, can. So, yeah, just look. SnyderCon basically was his opportunity to say it exists. It's basically ready. And there's still a debate, right, about how ready it is. The guy says to the guy at DC World, it just needs a few CG tweaks. That's not going to cost $40 million, John Aaron Garza. Anyway, as it turns out, I was not the only person told this. This news really boosted the morale, and we kept fighting for the cut. At every given opportunity, we hashtag on a WB tweet, keeping the hashtag trending still. Now we had confirmation that it exists. The time to step up our campaign was now. We knew it was real. Now we needed the wider audience, the public, the everyday cinema going. If they knew the truth, they would understand how important it is to get this film released to correct the wrong, not only at the customers for the mis-selling product, but most importantly for the immoral behaviour, and to dedicate to the memory of Autumn, or at least acknowledge the tragedy and apologise publicly. This must never happen again. Greed should never come before decency, absolutely, but the greed is the first word in the entertainment industry's dictionary, my friend, and decency doesn't exist in their dictionary. Always remember that. Greenlit art should always be honoured. After all, why employ an expert if execs overuse based on an idea of potential profit? Notice that recently the studio are trying to promote themselves as a director-driven studio. This is a direct response to the movement, still without acknowledging what happened. WB good. So the main group of us who regularly coordinate come up with the idea of Project Comic-Con. The idea is to gain more support and public knowledge, not to embarrass the studio. Absolutely spot on. If the movement can win over naysayers, educate the haters to humanity, and most people would inspire them to also want this to not happen again, but to call for the right thing and release what Zach and crew worked so hard on. I'm getting a bit emotional now, just thinking of Autumn, really, to be honest. Where else better than SDCC, the large audience and worldwide entertainment media will be there. If we can promote the movement, it surely won't be ignored or disregarded anymore. We figure that if WB see that so many people from around the world have the same demand, they would conclude, at very least, there's a profit to be made. Initially, our idea was another banner flying over the convention on the Friday whilst people started to queue outside for Hall H banner reading WB released the Snyder Cut for Justice League. However, to continue to honour our tradition of donating to the AFSP, we decided that 50% of all raised would go to the AFSP. We needed, $1,070 USD for the banner, meaning our goal had to be around $2,000. I honestly didn't think we would have enough time to the beginning of April to raise this money. I set up the GoFundMe campaign. And we went. Within the first 13 hours, we hit our goal and some. We realised that the demand was so high for the Snyder Cut and people saw the idea as something really positive, which may actually work. So quickly came up with another idea and called it Level 2, a billboard on the highway as you enter San Diego. 3 days later, the goal was hit. Cash was flying. It was simply amazing. The outpouring of love is incredible. So we now thought about how we can make this one of the biggest fan-led PR campaigns in film history. Level 3 on ad in the SDCC edition of The Hollywood Reporter. This was extremely expensive, so we had to do it in tiers. I set a goal for quarter-page black and white ad. The ad was to advertise we would be attending the convention to hand out info and educate as many people in person as possible. To our amazement, we quickly reached enough to pay for a half-page ad in colour, hitting a grand total for all goals so far for, what's that, 18,000, is it? Yeah, 18,000, wow. What next? We thought, level 4 bus stop advertisement in San Diego. This also is extremely expensive. We found that we could purchase an entire wrap design around the entire bus shelter in San Diego. By the convention centre, we will now need to raise a grand total of over 2,000 USD. You guessed it, we did it. Media attention now gaining traction due to funding of over 21,000. We started to get asked for interviews. Even bloggers were starting to admit that the cut exists and there should perhaps be a release of it. The 50% to charity also showed that we were not a spoilt bunch of children demanding to see a superhero movie. It's actually a genuine cause that goes beyond just the movie. So to complete our own 5-arc story in honour mirroring that of Zach, we recently launched Level 5, a mobile billboard that will drive around the convention centre 5 days in the week for 8 hours a day during SDCC. This, however, is the most expensive thing. During the convention, I forgot to mention fully, we will have a ground team of movement members, attendees handing out leaflets and free merchandise whilst trying to educate. The ground team thus far has self-funded. However, due to the scale of the project, it's become obvious the ground team must upstep its game. So included, where am I? Okay. So there are two options involved. Hit a cheaper target of a paper mobile billboard by the end of June, or the more expensive digital mobile billboard week before the event in July. The contingency being, in any case, if we fail to reach enough for mobile BB, the ground team will be funded and all remaining donations added to the donations to the AFSP. To date, we have raised almost 12,000 USD for AFSP from Project Comic Con alone. When you include money and raised through t-shirt campaigns, we have raised a total so far, AFSP, an amount almost, what's that, 100,000? No way! That's crazy. So we're coming to the end here, you'll be glad to hear. So I'm going to read the last bit. This is good. Look, this is a great article. It's a really long one. It's really tired me out, but it's a great one. To try and promote the final push for Project Comic Con, I decided to do a video, a docu of the movement so far, advertise what we have achieved, and also create a dedication for Autumn and the Snyders. However, having previously been in contact with Ray Porter, the actor who played Darkseid, I thought I would ask if he would lend me his voice. The rest, they say, is history, and of course he has. We played that on here the other day, didn't we? Thank you to Will and everyone involved, and good luck. DC World will be supporting you all the way, and if it gets released, personally, I want to see it with you all on the largest screen possible. I will get the popcorn. Well done, mate. That was a great article, a very long article, but a great one, and I really enjoyed reading it. And it just goes to show you that these sites understand the importance of it, because there's so many elements of this. There's Autumn's suicide, what Warner Brothers did. Look, it's very, very unsavoury, and normally these things are kept behind the scenes. But what Zack did once they betrayed him, he came out, went on Vero, and did what he could legally to throw them under the bus and put pressure on them and galvanise us, the fans, to push this. And we've pushed this, and we're going to keep on pushing it, and more people are getting involved. And this billboard campaign, you know, putting an advertisement in the Hollywood Reporter is massive. The very, very site, the very, very people who have got an ear with Warner Brothers. How is that going to go down? They're going to accept the money, surely, right? They're going to do it. So very, very interesting. Do Warner Brothers want to do this? Are they that resistant to it, or do they want to know it's going to be worth their while? Nobody knows how Warner Brothers are feeling about it. But us as fans, and DC World are involved now as well, which is great. Go follow DC World. They're brilliant. Follow them on Twitter. Follow their site. They're brilliant. But yeah, we're going to keep on fighting because ultimately, I'm supportive of the charity. I want the film to be dedicated to Autumn. Zach and Deb deserve that. Autumn deserves that. But ultimately, and I'm going to be a fan here, I want to see this version of the movie. Because in my imagination, it's going to be one of the best looking, most compelling superhero films I've ever seen. And I just want to damn watch the movie. And I know that you do too. See you in the next video. Sorry for keeping you so long, but it was fun, wasn't it?